2014年3月23日，在复兴中小学的一场公益明星篮球赛中，身高210公分的美国篮球选手 Kevin Love 显得特别突出。而更引人注目的是，这前所未有的独臂球员在球场上的优异表现。而在 NCAA 美国大学篮球联盟史上 ，Kevin 是首度拿到 Division I 最高等级奖学金的特殊学生，打破历史纪录的他，缔造了体坛传奇。年仅23岁的 Kevin 从小就是基督徒，他的座右铭是“靠着那加给我力量的，凡事都能做”。即便追寻篮球梦的过程中处处碰壁，但这一段圣经经文却成为 Kevin 最大的力量。他证明了一只手也能在球场上闯出一片天。
让我们非常的高兴 ，Kevin Love 弟兄来到我们的当中，好不好？我们一起用最热烈的掌声欢迎他来到我们台上，欢迎他。
这一次，在溪水旁关怀单亲家庭协会和宇宙光全人关怀机构的邀请下 ，Kevin 来到台湾，在全台各地分享他的奋斗故事，启发了数以千计的年轻学子。他也在世界各地以演讲、篮球教学，激励更多人。回首过去一切困难 ，Kevin 知道自己的与众不同，是为了结出更美好的果实。
观众朋友你好，我是金玉，欢迎收看真情部落格。今天的来宾他非常的特别，他是一个很阳光的大男孩，让人感觉非常的温暖。但在球场上呢，他却又是快很准，叱咤风云。但是你很难想象的是，他要花多少时间去克服他先天上的障碍。这可能是一个漫长的旅程，但是也是一个像奇迹般的故事。我们也欢迎 Kevin Love 来到我们的现场。Welcome, Kevin.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Welcome to Taiwan. What's your first impression of Taiwan?
The most gracious people I've ever met. Just so inviting and loving to each other. I haven't met one person yet who has been rude at all or mean by any means. Everybody's been incredible. You know, the weather's beautiful. It's so pretty here in Taipei. It's paradise.
Did you try any Taiwanese food?
I have, yes. I've only been taken to the finest restaurants. I've had the best roast duck I've ever had in my life. I've had incredible variations of food, but I did try goose feet, and I probably shouldn't have done that because I woke up a little sick yesterday.
Many people within the Chinese community may not familiar with your story. So, can you share with us what happened to your arm? Is it congenital?
Yeah. So when I was born with my umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. Several times,
wow.
and it discontinued my arm. It took my arm off, but the doctors explained that because my arm got in between the umbilical cord and my neck, it saved my neck from being taken off instead, and it saved my life. So I lost my arm at birth, but you know, it was a trade for my life, which in my opinion is a pretty good trade.
Wow. How did your family react at that time?
My dad, you know, he was a big guy, an athlete. He used to be a race car driver and a football guy, and he had a very hard time with it. You know, as a father, you look at your newborn, and you want them to be healthy, and you know want them to do well in life. But when I had one hand, he didn't know what I was going to be able to do and the obstacles I was going to have to overcome. He had a very difficult time with it as my father, but my mother really believed it was a blessing from God.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she loved it. She thought it was a blessing in disguise. And I was born on April 13th, 0413. And so, you know, at a young age, she gave me a Bible verse, Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so she instilled that mentality and faith in me as a young child. And she wanted me to learn how to do things like everybody else. I had Velcro shoes at the time, so I didn't have to tie my shoes. Well, she realized her mistake by buying them for me, so she threw them away, gave me a pair of shoes with shoelaces, and told me I have to learn to tie my shoes like everybody else. And that was one of the best things she's ever done for me, is not to baby me, not to treat me differently for my shortcomings. But at the time, I didn't really understand myself, why I was born like this. At a young age, 4 and 5, I started to realize other kids didn't have, I never saw anybody with a disability opposed to myself. So I was wondering why this was, happening to me.
You need some explanations.
People made fun, made jokes, and all these little kids at a young age asked, what happened to your arm? What happened to your arm? And I'd come home crying, and my mother asked why, and I said, I don't know, what to tell them. I don't understand personally why I have one arm myself.
How did you deal with all the kids who tease you?
It was hard at first. I didn't have too many bullies because I'm such a big guy, so no one was picking on me too much. But it was just difficult to understand, why, what the purpose, for being different, being born in a different way, and the hardships I had as a child. It was very hard from a psychological perspective to, understand, why, what was the reason behind it.
I heard that your mom made a story for you to explain what happened to you to all these kids, right?
Yeah, that was the shark story we were telling. We told kids, I still do it today. I actually introduced that way when I shared my testimony at New Life Church yesterday. I told an elaborate story about how a shark bit my arm off in Hawaii, and then I told them I was just kidding, but everybody believed it. It was it's fun.
How did they react?
They laughed. You could hear a pin drop, before I told them I was kidding, and that's not how it actually happened, because people wonder that, but it's rude to ask flat out. So I break the ice by letting them know. So at a young age, my mother told me to tell other kids a shark bit it off, and kids couldn't believe it.
What are some activities or tasks that are difficult for only having one arm?
It took me a long time to learn how to cut steak. But I learned, to place the fork, put my arm on top, and cut steak. There's not much that I can't do. My friend taught me to play a couple songs on the piano. The only thing I've never figured out how to do with one hand is the monkey bars on a playground.
When you were not able to complete some tasks, did you ever get frustrated?
I did quite a bit as a kid, especially when I was a child in elementary school. But I was blessed with certain teachers to take extra time to help me. Those role models, those mentors in my life really steered me in the right direction. My parents got divorced when I was 4 years old, and I was in a split custody situation, so I spent half the time in one household, half the time in the other. And because of this, I fell back academically from the other students. So what one of my teachers did is she asked all the other teachers in the grades to give her all their worst readers and to switch them out with the best readers of her own class, so I would feel more comfortable and more confident.
When your mom told you God must have a plan for you, did you believe that?
Not at that age, not for a very long time. It's very hard to understand, God's purpose in your own life, no matter who you are, what you go through, when things get difficult. I felt angry at God sometimes for the issues I had to go through when I saw everybody else and how great their lives were, and why wasn't my life like theirs. But I was raised to thank Him, bless the food before you eat, and to thank Him for everything He gave you. But I did question Him on my own time quite a bit.
Did sports help for you to divert emotions?
It helped quite a bit. I was put into soccer at a young age. My parents thought it was the best sport for me to play because I didn't need my arms to use it to play it. So I started with soccer, and I didn't enjoy it that much. And my parents then put me in a baseball team, and I was a pitcher for a baseball team. And what happened was I was a bit older, and I kept growing. When I was 10 years old, I was 5'10". I started playing basketball when I was about 12 years old, and I was over 6 feet tall. And what happened was one of my good buddies, he asked me to try out for the middle school team, the 7th grade basketball team. And I said, sure, why not? And I went and tried out. And being so big and strong at that age, even then the coach cut me and he said, you know, you can't play basketball. It's a two-handed sport.
Oh.
And you know, as an individual with my mother, you know, who instilled the mentality that, you know, I need to do things like other people. I can do everything like everybody else. I learned to tie my shoes. I learned to do all the obstacles I've overcome, and then to be told that I couldn't. It was the first time that it hit me, and instead of quitting, it made me want to play even more. So I didn't want to give up, and it became a dream of mine to pursue it and to become a better player. One, to prove this coach that he was wrong, but in a second way, to prove something to myself, that I could do anything.
So he accepted you unwillingly.
He didn't let me play on the team. A different
Really?
coach. Yeah, no, I had to go to a different program in a different town. I had to drive outside of my town to go play on a different team.
Really?
Yeah, and this other coach, he was running a traveling basketball team, and I was 12 years old at the time, and they didn't let me play with fellow 12-year-olds. This coach looked at me, and he had a big heart, and he did not have to take me on his team, but he looked at me, and he saw something in me, and he invited me to play with his team, but his team was 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Seniors, juniors in high school. And again, I was 12 years old. I couldn't even make my 7th grade team. So, you know, I spent the next year getting pretty much beat up by these older guys, playing to a level of competition that was way higher than, you know, my talent level. So what this coach did is he looked at my arm. I call this my nub, by the way. It's all bone, and he taught me to stab people with it when I play. It puts welts in their back. I'm a dirty basketball player, but he taught me to use turn my weakness, my arm, into a strength. And what I mean by that is he taught me to use, you know, the aspects of my arm, the positive aspects, and convert them into becoming a better player, but not just in basketball, in life, and to take pride in everything I do. So when fellow basketball players see me coming on the basketball court and they're playing against me, psychologically they think, you know, I get to play against a one-arm guy today. It's going to be easy to beat him. But then I come and I beat them, you know, I catch them off guard. Secondly, you know, they might think that they can force me in one direction, force me left, because I don't have a left arm. Well, my coach taught me how to respond to that. So every player plays against me defensively in a certain way, and I have, you know, an answer for them, and I, you know, go and dunk on them. So this coach spent a lot of extra time. He didn't have to. Again, another blessing in my life to have a person, you know, take me and spend extra hours of their time to maximize the full potential of myself.
Maybe there's nobody can coach you because no one has the, you know, experience to play basketball with only one arm.
It's difficult, and it always has been, because you know, from a coach's perception, how do you coach a guy who's playing in a whole different way than you play yourself? And you know, that was a big obstacle, you know, for my whole basketball career, was that mentality that coaches had. But that coach really spent the extra time teaching me to do things.
How passionate are you about basketball?
Oh, I love it now. At first, again, you know, it was to prove that coach wrong and to prove something, you know, against myself. But as I played it more and more, you know, I realized I quit the other sports. I stopped playing soccer and baseball and football, and, you know, I just started to love basketball.
What was the conviction that you had for you to keep going on when you faced the defeats?
You know, when you face defeats in life, you really have two options, in my opinion, and this is something that I've always thought. You can either quit and give up, or you can find a way to succeed. You know, some people do things in different ways. I have a faith in God, and, you know, I believe in that there is a purpose and that He'll give me the strength to succeed. And those hardships are meant for a purpose, to make you into the better person, you know, to prepare you for the kingdom of heaven. You know, I got to play basketball for about 2.5 hours a day on the team, and that was about the only part of it I enjoyed. In a program where there was no stopping, there was no out of bounds, there were no fouls. One time, one practice, I got a broken nose, and I kept playing with the broken nose, with blood going down my face.
只有完整的右手，绑鞋带对 Kevin 来说仍是易如反掌。在球场上，他更是个厉害的角色。当初为了要克服先天障碍 ，Kevin 投注所有的心力在练习上，但给自己设立高标准的他，也曾经沮丧不已。
When he started playing, he'd get very frustrated if something didn't go right, and he had, so he was going through some hard times with his dad dying and those things. So every little thing, he was an angry kid. I said, Kevin, so-and-so made a mistake. That kid made a mistake. He threw the pass to the wrong guy, and you're upset because you missed a shot? Come on. So it was, that type of thing. You just have to, and it was hard to talk to him then because, like I said, he was very frustrated and very angry when things like that happened. So I would just I usually joke with him.
But I placed my faith in God, and I was able to pursue my dreams, through faith in Him and His love and grace.
天生有着领袖特质的 Kevin， 在不断精进球技的同时，更带领球队屡创佳绩，受到媒体高度关注。对 Kevin 来说，争取奖学金进入大学球队也势在必得，却没想到高三最后一场球赛摔断了他的左腿，精英球队的梦也跟着粉碎。
一定不会舒服的，因为觉得好像你这么不容易爬山爬到一个顶点，要拿到那个奖杯的时候，然后那个奖杯又忽然滑走了，所以我就会想说他会不会放弃，因为好像要从山底再重爬起。
It would get really good, and then all of a sudden bad would happen, like meeting the president in one morning and then breaking his leg that evening, things like that. And that again, was angry, frustrated, but he's driven. He's a very driven kid. And once he sets his mind to something, aside from the usual frustrations or anger, he just won't give up.
进入高中球队之后呢，我相信对 Kevin 来讲就是一个非常新的阶段，但是他也是一个充满挑战的一个阶段了。他要如何证明他真的可以做得到？只有一只手的情况之下呢？其实，you were kind of later starter of basketball. Since you cannot dribble with two hands, how long did you take to learn to dribble with one arm?
Well, it helps. My hand is so big. I can palm the ball really easy. I learned to cross over by bouncing it once, and I can cross over with my left arm back. But I did learn to do, figure eights with one hand. The height and the strength helps. And this arm, although it, doesn't look like it's strong, it's very strong, and it helps push away other players and other individuals. And I was born without a left hand, but I'm, supposed to be left-handed. And how I know that is, from the doctors. They said my left arm goes up, and it happens quite often with people who lose their arm congenitally with the umbilical cord, is that the left arm is the favorite arm in, the womb. I also kick with my left foot, and I'm centered in that way. But again, that's a blessing because I'm coordinated, because I had to learn to do everything with my right arm. So naturally, I'm left-sided, but I had to learn to be right-sided.
So you have to make a double, triple efforts.
Exactly.
When your teammates pass you the ball, how do you catch it?
If I depending on the pass, I can just snatch the ball pretty easily with my hand and just grab it. And same with rebounding. I can pick it out of the air and then protect it. If I miss it, I might just try to get it to my body and then bobble it around and catch it. But I rarely get any turnovers. And it's easy with my height. I'm 6'11", but mainly as a basketball player, I learned, footwork was the most important thing for me to learn, to situate my body in a way that players could feed me the ball.
What are your strengths on the basketball court?
When I first started, it was defensive. I was one of the top defensive players of the state of California in the United States as a high schooler. I was naturally a good shot blocker, and I became a very good rebounder as well, knowing where the ball was going to hit off the rim based upon, where the player shot it from and how far away they shot it from. then I learned a little bit more offensively with the hook shot, and I could, dunk it a lot easier, and I became a better offensive player.
How do you develop the chemistry amongst yourselves, the teammates?
Yeah, I mean, that takes a while on any team and any sport to develop that synergy, to gel in a way where the teammates know each other's strengths and weaknesses and can feed off that and become the best team they can. I've always been a leader. Through the hardships, I'm only 23 years old. A lot of people wouldn't believe that, but I have leadership qualities, and the teams I've been on, I've been the team captain for most of them, and to have that synergy and to unite.
How did you win their trust?
By showing them my ability. Once I became a better player than they were, it was hard not to. When you become a very talented, successful basketball player or successful in life at anything you do, people will follow you.
By your junior year, you continued to improve, which attracted a lot of attention, huh?
Yeah. I had quite a bit of media attention. I was featured in Sports Illustrated, which is a big magazine. Internationally, It's huge. And they put me in the Super Bowl edition for football. They gave me a full page, and that's unheard of for a high schooler to get a feature that big. Well, I got a call while I was in class, in one of my classes in high school. And I looked at this area code on the phone, and I didn't recognize it. And I picked up my phone in class without the teacher saying, and I said, hello? And the man on the other line said, is this Kevin? And I said, yes. And he's like, this is, the White House calling. Would you be interested in meeting the President of the United States?
Oh, wow.
And I hung up on him. I thought it was a joke. I thought one of my friends was playing a prank on me, But he did call back, and so I got up and left the room and picked the phone up, and he asked again, would you be interested in meeting the President of the United States? And as an 18-year-old, I said, let me check my schedule, sure, I'd love to. So several weeks later, I went and I met, the President as he flew in on Air Force One in San Francisco. Me and my stepfather and my mother, met with him coming off the plane. It was an incredible experience. He signed me a copy of the magazine for me, and he spent 20 minutes with us, speaking with us. And that same night, I had a basketball game at my high school, a rivalry basketball game, and I went back, and I didn't get time to stretch because I was running late for meeting the President. And I landed on my leg wrong, and I broke it. So later that night, we were sitting in the hospital watching myself on the news on TV meeting the President while I'm sitting there in a wheelchair because I broke my left leg and I couldn't use a crutch on my left side because I didn't have a left hand. And I'm sitting there as a senior thinking my dreams are over. The universities that were looking at me to recruit me weren't interested anymore. And at the whole time, a movie maker is filming me, and I don't have any privacy or time to digest this. And it was one time in my life where, again, I had that same feeling, angry at God. Why would I be, so blessed with, these great experiences and anointings, and the same day have, such hardship.
Is there anything you can do at that time?
I had a very difficult time. I was so depressed. I didn't even go back to school for several weeks because I had to learn and adapt to using a crutch and figuring out how to walk because I couldn't put any pressure on my leg at all. So I was hobbling around on one foot, to try to take a shower, to try to do like normal day things. I had to relearn, but again, and I say this is very true, very amazing story, and the timing of it was incredible. I get a call from a gal at a different school who had a son born with one hand, and he was about 8 years old, and she called my mother, who gave the phone to me, and she was crying on the phone because her son, who was 8, was getting made fun of at school for having one hand. and asked me to go speak to the school so they would understand that, being different isn't so bad. And at the time I was so depressed. I was going through so much in my own life, and honestly I really didn't want to go. But my mom forced me to. And I went there and I showed a clip of me playing basketball, and I spoke to the kids, and I signed a basketball for this kid Connor, and I bring him up in front of everybody, and I gave him this basketball. Well, a short time after, his mother, she called me again, and she was crying. And I asked her, why are you crying? I just came to the school. And she was happy. There were tears of joy. She was happy. Her son was now the most popular kid in school. And she told me that he slept with the basketball. I signed him every night. And my mom reminded me that there was a purpose behind everything. And that God had a purpose, and that it was a blessing.
So after you overcame the injury, you chose a very different road. You enlisted in military academy.
Yeah,
Why?
An opportunity arose. It was the only opportunity, so they had a basketball program at this military academy. And the basketball program was really, really good. And 146, I think, people tried out that year to make the basketball team. They only take 12 guys. If you make that team, you're pretty much guaranteed to go on scholarship to university. And what that means is all your food and education and books and housing and everything is paid for, which was my dream. That was my goal. That's what I wanted to do. So after I broke my leg, again, I came to that crossroad.
Did you receive military training?
They did, yes. 90% of the time you're doing military stuff, and then the other 10% of the time you're playing basketball, and you rarely get to sleep or do anything else. And I didn't have a cell phone or internet or any way of communication. I was 3,000 miles away from home, and I could only communicate with my parents by sending letters to them. It was very lonely and very difficult.
Did you ever encounter anything that made you an imprint on you?
Yes, the motto for that military school is called Fork Union Military Academy. The motto there was it was the worst place to be at, but the best place to be from. And what that meant was that it's so hard, to go through what they put you through at that school, but they do it in order to make a boy into a man. It was an all-guys school, and they don't give you any slack. They scream at you if you do something wrong, and it was very difficult. I got to play basketball for about 2.5 hours a day on the team, and that was about the only part of it I enjoyed. In a program where there was no stopping, there was no out of bounds, there were no fouls. One practice, I got a broken nose, and I kept playing with the broken nose, with blood going down my face. So that's how tough it was to be there. But again, it was a situation in my life that made me stronger and better person, and realize the blessings, and never to take anything for granted.
So it seemed like you fell from the heavens to hit the rock bottom.
Exactly.
And how did you get the attention again?
I progressed, and I started to, once my leg healed, I worked hard, and I worked from scratch, and starting over and playing and getting better and better and better. And at that military school, I got better than I had ever been. So to put that in perspective, I was the 3rd leading scorer, the leading shot blocker, and the leading rebounder of my team. And we were ranked 5th in the country for prep school. We played the #1 team, and I played against this man, Thomas Robinson, who was the best player in the whole country. And I scored 15 points on him, and I held him to only scoring 4 points. And there were 150 college coaches in the gym watching him, and they saw me beat him. Not one of them recruited me. And everybody knew that it was because I had one hand. And they started feeling sorry for me, which didn't make it any better. It was a very difficult time in my life.
Right. Then how did you get into Manhattan College?
Well, my coach, at Fork Union brought me into the chapel, and he prayed with me, and he said, "Kevin, you're going to get a scholarship." And I got a call from a school, Cal Poly, back in California, and they asked me to come out because they were interested in giving me a scholarship later in the year. And I flew out there and met with my parents, and I was coming to meet with the coaches of the team, and I drove up, And these coaches were very angry, and they were passing the phone back and forth between each other. And as we approached them, the head coach clicked his phone off, looked at me, and he said, "Kevin, me and the whole coaching staff just got fired. And we can't give you a scholarship because we don't have a job anymore." And I had to get back on the plane and fly back to military school with this pit in my stomach. Again, mad at God, because I didn't understand why this was happening. But at military school, I grew much closer to God. I read the Bible from front to back while I was there because I had a lot of spare time with no TV or anything to do. So I made it a point to read the Bible, and I did in 9 months. It's a long book. But, you know, I placed my faith in him, and at the end of the year, I got called to Manhattan College in New York City, and they offered me a full scholarship. And I got my education and everything paid for, and I became the first basketball player at that level to ever play with a disability.
Can you tell us how competitive is the Division I?
It's very, very, very competitive. You know, all the guys that play on that level are amazing and very, very talented in their own ways. You have guys from all over the world who are great players. My roommate going into school was the best player out of Norway, and he got recruited to the school. And we had several players from Africa, and we had players from anywhere in the United States recruited to play there. And you know, there are a plethora of teams. It's very difficult, and very few people get to play at that level. You know, I know that Jeremy Lin had a very similar situation where he was a very talented player, and no one wanted to give him a scholarship either. So, you know, it was just such a blessing, you know, from God to be able to, you know, achieve my dream. And it was, you know, the happiest, you know, I could have possibly been.
Did you ever imagine that?
At points, I didn't believe it would happen, especially after I was informed that the Cal Poly coaches had all gotten fired. I started worrying that, you know, it was just never going to happen. But it did, and you know, I made the best of it, and it was an incredible experience. An experience I'll never forget. He stood up and he was crying really, really hard. And he said, you know, the other players and the people in this room, they don't understand this, they don't know this, but I have leukemia, and I have a tumor in the back of my head, and the coaches told me to quit, and the doctors told me to quit, but Kevin, you never quit, and I'm never going to quit.
曾因为自卑而不善表达的 Kevin Lau， 如今却能在世界各地分享自己的故事。他是独臂神射手，也是激励演讲者。Kevin 奋斗的过程，鼓励了许多智障孩童与他们的家庭，还被取材拍摄为纪录片，记录7年来的酸甜苦辣。片中的 Kevin 虽然曾经怀疑人生，几度要放弃篮球梦，但不服输的个性与家人的鼓励，让他重回球场。现在的他更加知道，上帝总有最美好的计划。
在电影院里面，当我们散场出来的时候，每个人就是都是那种拿着 T 恤，然后在那拼命擦眼泪，然后忽然灯光打开那样。我想就是很触摸人的心，就是整个片子看他的人生的过程。虽然他看起来是23岁，可是经历像46岁的人一样，就是整个片子真的是很真实，就是这么真实的这样子拍出来。
When we were going to see that first little kid at the school that he talks about, on the way there, he was angry. He didn't even want to go. He was whining in the back of the car. It's like, gee, Kevin, you know, just trying to help somebody. All upset. So afterwards, and you know, it's like where you get to a point where people are telling you things, his mom and myself, and then all of a sudden the light goes on. And because he saw what it did for this little guy, and it was just, you know, I get it. So it was like that point's where he got it.
一路走过来，Kevin虽然说他也有陷入低谷的时候，而且非常非常的艰难，但是挫折到后来都变成他生命当中的养分。当他明白自己的价值之后，又开始去影响更多的人，尤其是可能是有一些残疾，他们觉得面对自己没有信心的人，看到Kevin之后，似乎好像重新点燃了希望。其实 ，after having been through all this, Kevin, have you ever thought?What if I have 2 arms?
In my life, one of the biggest coaches in college basketball, he came and he shook my hand after one of my big games while I was at military school, and he said, Kevin, if you had 2 arms, you'd be the top player in the NBA. And then he walked away, and he wasn't recruiting me to play for his school, so it was the best and worst thing I ever heard. You know, it showed respect towards my ability and how good I was, but in a sense, it was, you know, the reason that I wasn't was because I had one hand. But the honest truth is that there have been so many people like that kid Connor I spoke of, and I could tell you 100 more stories I know we don't have time for, of individuals I've been blessed to help in so many different ways. A ripple effect, I mean hundreds of thousands of people that I wouldn't have been able to touch and inspire if I had 2 hands. And the honest truth is, if you gave me another hand, I wouldn't take it today.
Throughout your basketball career, who was your role model?
I had several. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. He's a big man. He's known for the hook shot, and I based my game off of him. Coach McKnight, who recruited me at a young age, and my coach at military school. I actually had the opportunity of meeting him this past October in New York City, and we spoke for quite some time, and I was just in such awe that I was meeting this guy. I based my basketball ability by watching him and how he played, and I thanked him, and he looked at me and he looked at my arm and he said, Kevin, I got a question for you. I don't understand. How did you do it? I just don't get it. How did you play? I don't get it. And I smiled at him, and I gave him a little nub. I poked him in the side, and he's like, God, that thing hurts. And he's like, man, the hook shot's got nothing on that thing. You keep it up. Which is one of the best experiences of my life, to meet my hero.
But now you are the role model or hero for many children, and you are helping those who have physical disabilities. Not only children, you also help parents.
When I got recruited to Manhattan College, the university that I went to and played basketball for, I was featured in the front page of the New York Times. And in the same week, this man, Skip Connors, he had a son born with one hand, and he was depressed because his son had one hand just like mine was when I was born. And he didn't know how his son was gonna, be able to do daily things like everybody else and overcome those challenges. And he came to my first game, and he waited to meet me afterward, and I went up and I shook his hand. I'd never met him before, and I realized my shoes were untied, and I knelt down and I tied my shoes quickly. And by the time I was standing up, Skip was crying, and I looked at him and I was like, why are you crying? And he said, my son's gonna be able to do anything. And I started crying, and we started hugging, and we grew in relationship. Skip now is a real dear friend of mine, and his son is 4 years old, and I'm actually his godfather. And
oh, really?
Yeah, I love him so much. Jackson Connors, he's such an amazing, beautiful boy, and he's playing basketball, and I've taught him moves and stuff, and I've never seen a kid that good at basketball so young. It's such a blessing and an encouraging thing to be able to affect somebody else's life.
I heard that there was a woman who wrote a letter to you on the FB.
Yeah, on Facebook I got a message. I was going through fan mail, and I got a message from a lady who was apologizing to me. It was a very, very, very long message. She was apologizing to me because a week prior she had a sonogram, and the doctors told her that the baby she was pregnant with was going to be born with a disability. And so she decided to have it aborted.
Oh.
And she saw me in the media right after, on TV. And she wrote me this letter, and I could tell she was crying when she wrote it, because she was so sad. And she said, the reason I had my son or daughter aborted, my baby aborted, was because I thought they would never be happy in life because of their disability. And if I would have seen you in the media and known about you and your story, I wouldn't have had that. My baby would be alive. I had never met this lady, and it was such a sad, touching story. But the lady kept in touch for a while, and she'd made efforts in her sorrow and regret to, you know, join anti-abortion and help other people in different ways.
Now you became an inspiration not only for those who physical disabilities in the USA, but also for people like me over the world. So let's talk about your documentary. It's called Long Shot, right? The Kevin Lau story. When it was first aired, what went through your mind?
I realized when I saw this film, you know, my mom was right. You know, God had a greater purpose, and everything I went through was for His purpose for me and His plan. And it's hard as humans, again, to realize when you're going through negative things, you know, that there is a greater purpose, and it's hard to, you know, draw back and see life in full. It did very successful. It was a documentary. It was real time. So the filmmaker didn't know that I was ever going to get a scholarship, and he didn't know I was going to meet the president, and he didn't know I was going to break my leg when he started filming it. So as everything was happening throughout my life, he was filming it, which made for a tremendous and heartfelt documentary.
What was the most memorable thing that had happened?
Well, my dad actually had passed away when I was 10 years old, and he got, you know, cancer. And at his funeral, they played a video, a goodbye video that no one knew that was filmed. And he talked to my brother, my older brother, and told him how much he loved him. And he talked to my older sister and expressed how much he loved her. And when he, you know, got to me, the first thing he said was, you know, Kevin, when I think of you, I think of a clown. And realized I was 10 years old. And I was already going through, you know, such emotion and hardship, you know, having one arm. When I was 10, I was 5'10". I was a giant at 10 years old. But the filmmaker, he took this video and he sliced it and put it throughout the documentary. And the most amazing thing happened when I watched the film for the first time. I realized everything he said afterward was exactly how my life unfolded to today. And he did express how much he loved me, and he believed I was going to do amazing things. And it made it very difficult for me to watch because it's so sad, but at the same time, it was the first time I'd heard the rest of what my father said, and it healed, you know, so much pain that I had.
How did the audience react of the documentary?
Basically, everybody cries. You know, they love it. It's an inspiring, very inspiring film. And I'm not saying that, you know, in a way because it's my own life and story, but the film director actually put it together. He had 1,000 hours of footage to condense and edit into 90 minutes. So the audience reacted in a very well-mannered way. I played it for the Special Olympics in the United States, and they spoke out, and they loved it, and I did a Q&A afterward, and it was phenomenal. But more recently, I played it in Uganda, Africa, for the national basketball team there. And we played it on a sheet on the side of a shack because there wasn't, you know, it was a real rough neighborhood. And, you know, 40 plus people piled into a small room, and we all watched my film. And as I was watching it, I realized, you know, from an American's perspective, you know, I had been through a lot, you know, in my personal life. I had overcome a lot of adversity. But as I was watching it, I was sitting next to these guys and living in the conditions they lived through for 2 weeks. I realized, prospectively, that in many ways they had it a lot harder than I did. And I was humbled. And I was fearful because it was very quiet as the whole movie was going on. But as the film ended and the credits rolled and it shut off without being told, each one of the guys who I'd spent the last 2 weeks helping and coaching stood up and they said something they liked about the film. But the team captain stood up, and it was an experience I'll never forget. He stood up and he was crying really, really hard. And he said, you know, the other players and the people in this room, they don't understand this, they don't know this. But I have leukemia, and I have a tumor in the back of my head. And the coaches told me to quit, and the doctors told me to quit. But Kevin, you never quit, and I'm never going to quit. And it was such a powerful experience in my life where I really had never felt closer to God, you know, and His purpose and will for me.
So Kevin, your basketball career ended with your graduation, right? What do you spend most of your time doing now?
I do, you know, motivational speaking across you know, the whole world, and I share my testimony to you know, churches and colleges alike, and you know, I still play basketball a bit. I've been appointed as a board member for the Special Olympics, and they are having me playing a celebrity game in June this year, and they're matching me up against Yao Ming. So that should be an interesting situation. He's a big guy. Now I'm working, you know, with the United Nations of becoming, in the early stages, becoming a goodwill ambassador for them as well. You know, it's a blessing to share my life story and help others. Again, you know, it's such an incredible journey.
其实 Kevin 能够坐在这里分享他的故事，我相信这就是一个本身很大的奇迹了。Are there any last words that you want to share with our audience?
You know, sometimes life gets very difficult, and sometimes life is amazing. And when life is good, just remember to, you know, bring the glory to God. And when life gets really tough, just realize that, you know, it's for a reason, and you're being shaped and formed in a way that you might not understand. But there's a reason behind everything. And just remember to love others and be there for them when they're going through rough times, and they'll be there for you when you're going through rough times. But when you're loving and inviting like Jesus asked us to be, then you'll be able to accomplish anything. Philippians 4:13.
天生我材必有用 ，Kevin Lau， 我想他用他的生命见证了这个非常美丽的故事。我们没有办法改变我们的外在，但是我们就可以改变我们的内心。如果我们没有办法去要回我们失去的东西，那我们就好好的去珍惜、去享受、去训练我们所有的东西，让它成为有更高的价值。其实我相信上帝对我们的计划远远超过我们的想象，所以呢，甩开自怜，起身向前，你就能够像 Kevin Lau 一样，拥有一个得胜的生命。Thank you, Kevin, for
Thank you so
coming.
much.
Thank you
谢谢
for sharing. Thank you.
各位好，我是你们的老朋友孙越。看了这一集，你有没有什么感觉？常常有的人总觉得，哎呀，我生的这孩子，我倒霉呀！哎呀，我上辈子做了什么孽，我什么，给自己加了很多很多的一些负面的情绪。生活上觉得孩子出去都丢人。但是我们看到了凯文劳瑞，你看到他的父母接受，在这么样一个环境中间，拿自己这个孩子，不错，他确实少了一只臂膀，可是呢，他拿他当正常的孩子，怎么样管教，该怎么样就怎么样。就在这个环境中间，我们的凯文就这样成长，而且是快乐的成长，去接受自己，反而更加的觉得，哎呦，我就比别人强。在今天我们看这一集，我必须要说，是给各位观众，让我们重新来想想，有许多的负面情绪，许多的已经发生的事情，我们要不要接受？我们用什么方式来接受？是认了，还是坦然的、愉快的就来接受？我们一起低头做个祷告。亲爱的主耶稣，我们谢谢你。我们借着凯文老姨 他的见证，他美好的这种感觉，坦荡的告诉我们的所有观众的时候，主，我为电视机前面的朋友们，为那些家庭祷告，希望他们也都走出来，希望他们也是重新的认定了自己的家庭、自己的人生，因为前面的路需要靠自己走，靠自己来证明，没有什么比较，就是在我们觉得不什么的时候，我们来完全仰望主。不错，我们有软弱，我们有一些事情的情绪是不对，或者我们觉得外来给我们的有一些刺激打击，但是我们看见了你所经历的，凯文也同样的经历。主，求你帮助电视机前面的朋友们，家庭每一个成长中的孩子们，主也让他们都走出来，享受主耶稣基督的平安，耶稣的喜乐。为他们祷告，奉主耶稣基督的名，阿们。亲爱的朋友，欢迎你到附近的教会，让教会里面的圣经真理帮助你，上帝赐福你。